coming up on Varsity Sports. The season is in full swing, and we've got a couple of playoff caliber matchups on the schedule for this Friday night.
Eric Grover from the Wahpeton Daily News will weigh in on the Class 2A tussle between Wahpeton and Shanley.
While in South Dakota, Harrisburg looks to strengthen its case as one of the top teams in Class 11AA against Brookings. Coach Brandon White gives us the keys to beating the Bobcats.
All that plus another top-notch batch of Jandy-approved plays and a look back at some of last week's top performers. Just ahead on Varsity Sports.
And how is everybody doing? I'm Jay Elson. He's Jason Andera. And over the next 30 minutes, we're going to recap the week that was and get you primed and ready for another weekend of high school football in the Dakotas.
Can't wait. The games do keep getting better and better every week. And the matchups in these next 2 or 3 weeks are really going to separate what's going to happen coming up postseason, less than a month away.
Absolutely. And we kick things off tonight, as always, with a look back at some of last week's action, which featured a little revenge for a reigning runner-up and an overtime upset in Sioux Falls. It's time for your Varsity Sports South Dakota Rewind. Yankton found a little magic at McEnany Field after an A.J. Martinez touchdown gave O'Gorman a late 3-point lead. The Bucks got into position for a game-tying 23-yard field goal on the final play of regulation. And after quarterback Mason Strahl put the Bucks in front in OT, the defense finished the job. Yankton wins 32-25 to go to 4-0 on the season.
I mean, that's one of my favorite plays because I just know Mason throws that ball up and just lets me go get it. And I saw it coming and I knew I had to get it. I knew the team needed me in that one, so I made the most of it.
Brookings also had upset hopes as they took on Lincoln at Howard Wood Field. Senior Dayton Bird did his part, posting touchdown runs of 63 and 38 yards to get the Bobcats within 7 in the fourth quarter. But Kieran Denny's 40-yard interception return for a touchdown put the game away for the Patriots. Lincoln wins their 16th straight game, 35-21.
We survived the homecoming week and beat a really good team. So I'm proud of them, but we got to get a lot better if we're going to attain the ultimate goal of winning your last game.
Quarterback Jake Como tossed 3 first-half touchdowns to help Brandon Valley put Washington away early. Como was good all night, completing 29 to 34 passes for 257 yards and 5 total touchdowns. Drew Reinschmidt finished with 12 catches for 74 yards and 2 scores as the Lynx roll 38-21.
Jet Thune's second start at quarterback went just as well as the first for Roosevelt. Thune threw for 225 yards, ran for 66, and recorded 4 total touchdowns as the Rough Riders routed Aberdeen Central 48-17. Running back Jake Bear also had a big night, 157 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground.
In Rapid City, St. Thomas More hosted Douglas in a battle of unbeaten teams. Cole Thurnes caught touchdown passes in both the second and third quarters to help the Cavaliers turn a 7-6 deficit into a 21-7 lead, and the defense held on from there. St. Thomas More edges Douglas 21-14 to improve to 5-0. They've got another big one on Friday against fellow 11B Power winner.
Madison traveled to West Central for a rematch of last year's 11A championship game. And missed opportunities came back to haunt the top-ranked Trojans in this one. West Central moved the football, but couldn't score, and Madison eventually made them pay. Quarterback Mitch Hansen threw 2 touchdowns, ran for another as the Bulldogs get a little revenge with a 21-9 win in Hartford.
We knew they were going to come out firing hard, and we thought they'd be flowing downhill, so we got faked underneath and threw it deep.
In winter, Parkston ran all over the hometown Warriors with Wesley Dvorak and Miles Semler. Those two combined for 337 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground to help 11B's reigning runners-up score an impressive 35-18 win.
It's another step. It's one of those things we're trying to get better every week, and this is one of those things where I think we did get better this week, and it gives us a step forward, and that's where we're trying to move.
In the 9-man ranks, Alcester Hudson made a statement in Garrettson, thumping the previously unbeaten Blue Dragons 46-14. Quarterback Grant Johnson led the charge, rushing for 185 yards and 4 touchdowns. Colin Walth added 2 more scores on the ground for the Cubs. They improved now to 5-0 on the season.
All right, that is a look back at the week that was in South Dakota high school football. Now time to turn our attention to this week. In Friday night, one of the best matchups in the entire state of South Dakota is in Class 11AA in Harrisburg. Brookings makes the trip down to take on the Tigers.
People are nice and send me feedback on my power rankings all the time. And,
People are nice.
They are. And I do have Brookings still at number 1. I've got some angry Harrisburg fans that let me know that, hey, we're still undefeated, folks. And I've got them at 3 behind not only Yankton, but Brookings. So Brookings on the road taking on a tough Harrisburg team. Looks to be a great battle. I just think Brookings is going to be a tough team to beat.
Absolutely, and Brookings, you got to remember, the last couple of weeks, brutal schedule for them. At home against Brandon Valley, a game that was back and forth. They lost it late. And then, of course, a game maybe they feel like they let slip away from them a little bit with some costly turnovers at Lincoln last week. Those are 11 AAA teams that they've lost to this season. Perfect against everybody else.
We talked about a rough stretch. We've got a rough stretch coming up now for Harrisburg, and it starts this week at home against Brookings.
Yeah, and the head coach of the Harrisburg Tigers is Brandon White, and he joins us now on the phone. And Brandon, simple question, is this the best Harrisburg team you've had since you've been the head coach there?
Yes, I strongly agree with that comment. Yes, we are. For a couple reasons. I think this group of seniors have been together so long, and it's the most we've had playing at one time. I think the continuity, the team philosophy is a lot higher than it has been, which is always turns into success usually.
Well, that being said, what are the keys to beating the Bobcats on Friday?
Well, offensively, we have to take care of the ball. We cannot turn the ball over. We can't give them extra possessions. They're going to have their possessions, and we know they're going to score. But if we can limit the possessions they do have, make sure we continue to hang on to the clock, extend drives by getting key third downs, I think we'll be successful offensively. Defensively, we have to fly to the football. They're very good at breaking tackles, getting to the next level. They're physical up front. So we need to make sure, we arrive. Everyone needs to be at the football, and we got to continue to be aggressive.
All right, that again, Brandon White, head coach of the Harrisburg Tigers, 4-0 on the season, hosting Brookings this Friday night in Harrisburg. Bobcats coming into that one at 3-2. Certainly look forward to seeing some of those highlights coming up on Varsity Sports Live.
I will be there.
Friday night, 10:30, right here on Midco Sports Network. All right, well, North Dakota's top 9-man team got a bit of a scare at North Star on Friday, sort of. We'll recap that and the rest of the week's action from North Dakota when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back. Well, Cavalier cruised to the 9-man title a year ago, and there's been no let-up in 2014. The Tornadoes destroyed the first 5 teams they faced this season, but some thought North Star might have enough to keep up with the champs. Well, that's where we start on this Varsity Sports North Dakota Rewind. The Bearcats did manage to hang around longer than most, but they couldn't slow that potent Cavalier attack. The Tornadoes scored on their first 6 possessions to break things wide open. Cavalier continues its run as the undisputed #1 team in 9-man football with a commanding 68-19 win. Brock Robbins, by the way, finished with 5 touchdowns on the night.
It was all Fargo South in this one. The defending champs put up 4 first-half touchdowns against Devils Lake on their way to a 57-7 win. They advance now to 5-0 on the season. Gus Seaway had his turn leading the Bruins in rushing. He got 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. And by the way, Ty Brooks and James Johannesson both had multiple touchdown nights.
Fargo Davies overcame a slow start against Grand Forks Central. Aiden Hartness threw for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Ty Jochum ran for 87 and 2 more scores. Davies stays perfect with a 42-8 win over the Knights.
And it was West Fargo getting their best defensive performance of the season. They had a 33-0 shutout over Fargo North, giving up just 101 yards of total offense. Creighton Fow and running back Sam Olson led a balanced attack as the Packers get above 500 for the first time this year.
After falling flat in West Fargo a week earlier, Grand Forks Red River roared back against Cheyenne. The Rough Riders notched the first 3 scores of the game, including this 96-yard touchdown by Austin Reynolds, and never looked back. They scored 40 points on just 33 offensive plays and cruised to a 40-14 win.
And Fargo Shanley had no problems, once again getting a 48-7 win over Kindred on Friday. The Deacons enjoyed a healthy backfield with Danny Stosh back to go with Matthew Bird and Trey Fort. They were all in full force. Shanley gets their 4th win in a row, and now they head to Wahpeton to play the unbeaten Huskies.
Yeah, Shanley goes to 4-1 with that win, and as you said, they make up half of what will be one of this week's top matchups as the Deacons travel to 5-0 Wahpeton. And for more on the Huskies, we bring in Eric Grover from the Wahpeton Daily News. And Eric, going into this season, a lot of people, including us maybe, expected the Huskies to be down a bit this season. So what's the story? They're off to a 5-0 start. Is this team better than people thought it would be?
No, I think that that's pretty accurate to say that there were some expectations that Wahpeton would not be at the same level that they were last season, getting all the way to the state championship game. They lost a lot of seniors, but the group has really gelled together. They have a lot of playmakers, and they have had kind of an easy start to their schedule, but this is where they're really starting to get into the meat of things, and I think this is the part of the calendar where we're going to find out how good they really are.
So Wahpeton has a big win against Shanley on Friday. How do you think this game will play out?
I know both teams have been putting up a lot of points so far this year. I think it'll be kind of like last year's game, which was, I don't know if you remember that 13-0. It was rainy and wet and just windy, just really nasty. I don't know if the weather will be like that, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think both teams are really going to try and ground each other out. Wahpeton's run game has not been where they want it to be this season. So they really are going to have to find that balance if they want to be successful. But being at home will be a big advantage for them.
Again, 5-0 Wahpeton playing host to 4-1 Shanley this Friday night in Wahpeton. Should be a good one. Our thanks again to Eric Grover from the Wahpeton Daily News. Well, another area standout has made his college selection. We'll let you know where Roosevelt's Chase Vinatieri is headed when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. Jay Elson, Jason Andera. South Dakota State has landed another Sioux Falls Roosevelt standout as receiver and place kicker Chase Vinatieri announced his intentions to join the Jackrabbits on Monday. Vinatieri, the nephew of former Jacks and current Indianapolis Colts kicker Adam Vinatieri, chose SDSU over North Dakota State just as his friend and Rough Rider teammate Taryn Christian did a couple of months ago. Vinatieri isn't sure which position he'll play in college. He says that call will be made by the SDSU coaching staff. Another good get for the Jacks.
Yeah, this guy really came on the scene this summer when he ran at Coach Riggs's combine, and people saw that he's an athlete. He's not just a kicker. In fact, he was kind of being recruited as a kicker in his sophomore and junior year. They were looking at him, but now he's a full-fledged football player, athlete, and he was high on people's list, so a good get for the Jacks.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of top-notch players, we had a lot of them that turned in good performances last week. Let's start in South Dakota, Jason. Just looking back at some of the best individual performances.
Yeah, you see the list right there, up and down. Great performances. I'm going to point out Grant Johnson's performance: 185 yards, 4 touchdowns in a win over an undefeated team. Good job by the Alcester Hudson player. And then Jake Como, one of the best performances of the year, 29 of 34. Yeah, they pass a lot, but that's a lot of completions, and he hit 4 touchdowns on the night.
In North Dakota, what a night for Ben Belinsky.
Ben Belinsky threw the ball just a few times, only had 3 completions, but he collected 161 yards and 2 touchdowns off that production. So unbelievable night for Minot as they get a big shutout against Mandan. And then you look at Shiloh Christian's Zach Martin. Huge night for him, 184 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, 117 yards passing, and 2 more touchdowns.
Wow, good stuff all across the board. North and South Dakota, congratulations to the efforts of all of those guys. All right, well, our cameras caught several big-time plays last week, but only a few were deemed worthy of Jandy's coveted stamp of approval. Find out if this one made the list right after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. Jay Elson, Jason Andera. South Dakota State has landed another Sioux Falls Roosevelt standout as receiver and place kicker Chase Vinatieri announced his intentions to join the Jackrabbits on Monday. Vinatieri, the nephew of former Jacks and current Indianapolis Colts kicker Adam Vinatieri, chose SDSU over North Dakota State just as his friend and Rough Rider teammate Taryn Christian did a couple of months ago. Vinatieri isn't sure which position he'll play in college. He says that call will be made by the SDSU coaching staff. Another good get for the Jacks.
Yeah, this guy really came on the scene this summer when he ran at Coach Riggs's combine, and people saw that he's an athlete. He's not just a kicker. In fact, he was kind of being recruited as a kicker in his sophomore and junior year. They were looking at him, but now he's a full-fledged football player, athlete, and he was high on people's list, so a good get for the Jacks.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of top-notch players, we had a lot of them that turned in good performances last week. Let's start in South Dakota, Jason. Just looking back at some of the best individual performances.
Yeah, you see the list right there, up and down. Great performances. I'm going to point out Grant Johnson's performance: 185 yards, 4 touchdowns in a win over an undefeated team. Good job by the Alcester Hudson player. And then Jake Como, one of the best performances of the year, 29 of 34. Yeah, they pass a lot, but that's a lot of completions, and hit 4 touchdowns on the night.
In North Dakota, what a night for Ben Belinsky.
Ben Belinsky threw the ball just a few times, only had 3 completions, but he collected 161 yards and 2 touchdowns off that production. So unbelievable night for Minot as they get a big shutout against Mandan. And then you look at Shiloh Christian's Zach Martin, huge night for him, 184 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, 117 yards passing, and 2 more touchdowns.
Wow, good stuff all across the board. North and South Dakota, congratulations to the efforts of all of those guys. All right, well, our cameras caught several big-time plays last week, but only a few were deemed worthy of Jandy's coveted stamp of approval. Find out if this one made the list right after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. We wrap things up again this week with our head-to-head competition. It's Varsity Sports Pigskin Pick'em. And Jason, we just can't get any separation here. 1 point separates the two of us in the stands.
This was my turn this week to get the upset pick right. And it's probably back to your turn now, Jay. We got it really close, just a 1-point difference right now, halfway through the season.
All right, let's get to it right now. 2 games from North Dakota, 2 games from South Dakota. We start in North Dakota, Class 2A, probably the game of the week. Shanley at Wahpeton.
Shanley has really turned their game around after a week 1 stumble, I guess we'll call it, against St. Mary's. I think they're a much improved team, and I think Wahpeton's good. Just haven't seen that competition yet. Give me Shanley.
I think that game against St. Mary for Shanley just goes to show you how tested this team is. You know, you mentioned it there. Wahpeton 5-0. You got to credit them for that.
Yeah, they've done a nice job.
But they really haven't played the caliber of teams that Shanley has, and probably Shanley got its best game out of the way after that first week. But I agree. I like Shanley in this game, despite the fact that they're on the road. So give it to Deacons as well. In Class 3A, Jamestown 4-1 travels to Bismarck, and you know, obviously the Demons awfully tough to beat, let alone when they're on their home field.
Yeah, this is going to be a scary game, but you know what? Bismarck, every single test they've had a chance for a team to kind of scare them. They have not let that happen. They have taken care of business. Look what they did last week against Williston. Left them no room to get into the game. I think it'll be similar to Jamestown this week. Even though Jamestown just has a loss, I think Bismarck is way better.
Yeah, that one loss, the 27-17 loss to Minot at home for Jamestown. But Bismarck, I think, over the last couple of weeks, you mentioned Williston, I think they're getting better, which is a scary thing because obviously this team year in and year out is maybe 1, maybe 2 in the state. Always. But I like Bismarck comfortably on their home field. All right, South Dakota now, Class 11 AA. It's Brookings at 3-2. A couple of hard luck losses the last 2 weeks. They travel to Harrisburg, who's turning some heads.
I think right now Harrisburg has the better quarterback. There's no doubt. Shea Slaughter is doing a great job for Harrisburg. They've got a great power running game. Really nothing wrong with Harrisburg. I just think Brookings has that ability to turn it up a notch, get a little better on the running game with Daniel and Bird making the big plays. And I think it's time for Brookings to get that win. This 3-game stretch that they've had that's been tough, they finally get one at the end of their stretch.
Yeah, talk about a brutal stretch. You know, Brandon Valley at home, then you go on the road to Lincoln, and now on the road to Harrisburg. Tough deal for the Bobcats. They've lost the first two in somewhat hard luck fashion. I think they're due. I like them on the road to get the win here, but I agree. I think they need to run the ball more. You got guys like Bird and Daniel. I'm forgetting the fullback's name right off the top of my head, but several guys who can tote the rock and do it well and effectively for Brookings. I think that might be the key to them winning this week. All right, finally, Class 11B winner coming off that loss to Parkston travels to St. Thomas More. Big one in 11B.
Winter fought hard to get back into that game against Parkston. They're not that far away talent-wise, but they were forced to pass to try to catch up in that second half, and they couldn't do it. 4 out of 10 passing, only got less than 50 yards. I think they're going to have to pass in this game as well against St. Thomas More to keep up with Matt Eastmo and company of the Cavaliers. And I think St. Thomas More will pull away with that passing game in the fourth quarter.
I like St. Thomas More as well. We just saw them with an impressive performance over a much improved Douglas squad last week at home. Get the win there. I think they do it again this week against Winter. Hard to imagine Winter losing 2 straight games in the regular season, but I think that's the situation they're going to find themselves in.
Not too bad losses either. Two pretty good teams.
All right, well, finally, quickly, our upset picks of the week.
I have almost no basis to make this pick. I looked at the stats. Lemoore, Litchfield, Marion is going to beat Richland, and I've got no statistics to back that up. I'm just going to go with the gut.
Going with the gut. All right, well, I'm going to go with my gut as well, but I feel like this one really could happen. And that's Red River over Fargo Davies.
That could happen.
Of course, coming out at 5-0 in this game. But they're entering a tough 3-game stretch here. Davies has Red River this week, West Fargo next week, and Fargo South coming up. We're going to learn a lot more about the Eagles over the next 3 weeks than we have, I think, to this point.
They got to be careful, that's for sure.
Red River, tough at home, just a 1-score loss to Fargo South a couple of weeks ago. All right, that's going to do it for us. For Jason Andera, I'm Jay Elson. Remember to tune in Friday night for another episode of Varsity Sports Live. Jason's back with Tom Neiman. That kicks off 10:30 right here on Midco SM.